Welcome to the Scars of Heart channel, and invite you to watch our new video featuring our original story. Oh, girls, I was so scared. So scared. I'd been told so many things, including that first labors can last for days, and that all the amateurs in the maternity hospital would definitely do something that would require lifelong treatment for the baby. But here, it was the opposite. The nurses were kind. The doctors were understanding, and the doctor who delivered me, I think, was actually more worried than me. Lera sat on her bed in the maternity ward and shared her impressions of her first labor with her neighbors. It had ended close to midnight, and now that the young mother had finally gotten enough sleep and woken up, her joy knew no bounds. There were two other women in the ward besides her. Natalia, an older woman, a little heavy, quiet, but listening to her new young neighbor with a smile. She had given birth to her third child 2 days earlier and nodded with a wise air, letting Lera express her emotions. Her second neighbor, Sonia, a little older than Lera herself, who was also having her first child, chimed in, and sometimes, if she had time, she interjected a few words into Lera's stream of delight. "And who's your doctor?" "I don't remember." Lera shook her head. Such a kind, thin woman. Dark hair. Probably Terakova. Sonia glanced questioningly at the third neighbor. "That's the one." Natalia nodded. "You're lucky, girl. Your first birth and immediately the best doctor in this maternity hospital. She's already delivered me twice. Terakova is a highly qualified obstetrician-gynecologist and a good person." "Well, yes, I liked her right away, too," Sonia agreed. "I also gave birth under her supervision." "So, mommies," an elderly nurse entered the room, wheeling 3 babies in a transparent box on a gurney. "We're sorting our babies out for feeding, and my milk hasn't come in yet," Lera suddenly said in fear, instantly going from delight to almost despair. "It's okay," the woman smiled at her. "Take the baby. Let him learn, and your body will understand that she needs to produce milk faster." The nurse handed Lera a tiny bag containing a funny-looking reddish baby. Instead of crying, he made some kind of grunting sound. "He'll be the most handsome guy in the village. You'll find some," the nurse nodded. And, taking another bag with the baby, Natalia handed it to her. "And your girl is a real giant. Some boys are born smaller. She'll probably grow up to be just like her mother." "Oh, spit it out, Sveta. God forbid. I wouldn't wish such a life on anyone." The eldest sister shook her head, but took her daughter with a smile. "And whose is this one we have left here? The gnome. Go to mommy." The nurse pulled the last newborn out of the box and handed it to Sonia. You can't go wrong there. Sonia was the smallest in the ward. She smiled gratefully and took her son. "You're lucky, Natasha," Lera said. "I wanted a girl too. I even thought of a name for her. Arina. But it turned out to be a boy." "As if you'd love him less," Natalia smiled at her. "No, of course not, and my husband will be happy too. He always dreamed of a boy. Well, that's just what I thought. So, first things first, a girl. She'll grow up a bit, and then we can have a boy. Then again, my daughter will be able to look after her little brother." "Oh, is that really true?" Natalia shook her head doubtfully. "My eldest is also a daughter. You'd have to look hard to find such a wild child. You can't trust her with cat food, let alone a little brother. She'll gobble it all up without a choke. She's growing up such a troublemaker that I'm shocked. I can't even imagine what will happen at school. And how is your son?" "He's calm," Sonia asked. Natalia shrugged. "It's not clear yet. He's only 3, but compared to his older sister, what she was like at that age, Vovochka is the picture of calm and composure. So all these fairy tales about the older girl being the nanny are worth nothing. Everyone will grow up with the kind of character they were born with. But what about their upbringing? Lera looked at her incredulously. Ah. She waved her hand. Parenting can be slightly adjusted and guided, but it can't be fundamentally changed. A person's genetic makeup dictates how they will grow up. No, I don't believe that. I disagreed with that. Sonia, I think that if you put a little effort into raising someone, you can correct any genetics. Natalia chuckled. Try it. Maybe you'll succeed. Lera didn't argue, silently looking from one neighbor to the other, trying to figure out which point of view she held. But she didn't know the answer to that question. The girl hadn't even thought about it before. It's not that important. Misha and I are doing well. There are no alcoholics or crazy people in the family. And our son will be a very good boy, I'm sure. And Misha will take care of raising him. Dad will be a role model for his son. Have you thought of a name for the baby? Sonia asked Lera, finishing arguing with Natasha. No. The girl shook her head. My husband and I agreed that if it's a girl, I'll name it, and if it's a boy, he'll name it. Oh, watch out, friend. Don't miscalculate, otherwise you'll end up with something like Nicodeme or Prokopi. Natalia laughed. Such bizarre names are in fashion now. Lera smiled. I'm sure not. Misha was choosing between Maxim and Ilya and said, I'll just look at the baby, and I'll immediately know what his name is. What will you call him until he's discharged? Sonia asked in surprise. I've already started calling mine Danechka. Daniil, Lera clarified. Almost, Daniel. A very beautiful name. And his patronymic? Daniel Natanovich. Just like some kind of artist, the girl marveled. Lera was the last of the three to be discharged from the maternity hospital. By then, she already had other roommates, but she had barely had time to talk to them before her husband arrived with flowers and balloons. Everything at home was prepared for the arrival of their long-awaited son. In addition to what had been done and bought during Lera's pregnancy, the renovations, the crib, the strollers, and other necessary things Misha ceremoniously presented his wife with a beautiful diamond ring and a baby monitor. This is so you can always hear when your son wakes up and be at peace, instead of rushing around every 5 minutes, peering into the bedroom. Lera was pleased not so much by the gifts as by her husband's attention and thoughtfulness. After his wife returned from the hospital with their newborn son, Misha became frantic with activity. He ran to the stores and the pharmacy several times a day to buy more of what they had been looking for. They didn't think about it in advance. He went up to the neighbors to ask them to be quieter so that Lera could get some sleep. He also went to the civil registry office to pick up the birth certificate himself literally the next day. Here is our son's first document. He solemnly handed Lera the documents when he returned. The girl opened them and read them. Oleg Mikhailovich Skvortsov. Oleg. She was amazed. But you said we'd name him Ilya or Maxim. Yes, that was true. Her husband nodded. But our little son doesn't look like either one. As soon as I saw him, I knew it was Oleg. Don't you like it? He asked sadly. Oh, what are you saying? It's a very nice name. Oleg, Oleska, Oleshenka. Lera repeated the name in different ways, and with each pronunciation, she came to the conclusion that it really did suit their son very well. And Misha is great. He thought of everything perfectly. Oleg Mikhailovich, she finally nodded in agreement. Her husband, who had been tensely awaiting her verdict, breathed a sigh of relief. Sounds good. Lera confirmed her opinion. And I was in the ward with a girl named Sonia. She also has a son, born a day before ours. So, he's Daniel Natanovich. Can you imagine? It seems to me very unusual. Why not? Perhaps such names are common in her family, Misha objected. You remember, even the writer Daniel Defoe was like that. He wrote Robinson Crusoe. I remember, of course, it just seems a bit unusual for us. However, Nowadays, children are named differently, and Daniele really does sound beautiful. It's just that Daniel Mikhailovich would be somehow strange, and Anatovich goes well together. By the way, Sonia and I exchanged phone numbers. She lives not far from here. We agreed that we would walk together with the children in the park. Okay, darling, Misha nodded. Just please don't be upset if she refuses. Otherwise, you're counting on it, and she might have completely different plans after returning home. And I don't plan to. After all, we only talked for a few days. Maybe she's already forgotten about my existence. Oleg, Oleska, I like you. If it weren't for family traditions, I probably wouldn't mind if my son had that name. Sonia and Lera were strolling along the park's alleys, lined with mighty oaks and graceful lindens. A little further away, a mixed forest began. It already contained pine and spruce trees interspersed with birches and aspens. However, it was the large deciduous trees that provided shade along the alley. You shouldn't be upset about your family traditions. Lera, thinking that Sonia might be upset about her son's name, decided to reassure her. Daniel Natanovich sounds simply wonderful. I wouldn't be surprised if your son becomes a famous musician or a celebrated actor in the future. They spoke on the phone a month after he was discharged from the hospital. It was the height of summer, and the city apartments were stuffy, but the doctors were categorically against the parents taking their babies out of town. You can go out for the day, they said at regular appointments, but they had to be back by evening. Who knows what we might have missed at a child's age, or what the baby might catch. His immune system is still weak. Medical care needs to be available at any time. But how can she go out of town during the day if Misha is working? Lera had no choice but to stay home with Oleg, walking in the park. However, walking alone while the baby was sleeping was unbearably boring. That's when Lera remembered her friend from the maternity hospital. Sonia was delighted to receive her call, and Sonia happily agreed to join them on their walks. They had much more fun together. They discussed how the little ones were growing, what was going on at home, what delicious cottage cheese was at the dairy kitchen, and many other motherly problems they had no one to share with but each other. So, shall we meet on Monday, as usual? At the end of the walk, Lera asked the usual parting question. I don't know yet. Let's call each other, Sonia shrugged. Nathan said his parents might come, but I forgot when. That was all I needed to be completely happy. I just needed to manage the building, and then there were the relatives. Yes, Sonia nodded in agreement. She understood perfectly well that Sonia hardly had time for anyone else besides a small child. Lera certainly wouldn't have found an extra free minute, but relatives can help, right? On the other hand, she tried to cheer up her friend. His mother might agree to help you out a little. Leave Dania with them, and at least go shopping yourself. You can't just dance around them. Let them do something useful for their son's family, too. Good, that's a thought. Sonia smiled gratefully. If Nathan doesn't mind, maybe they'll even let us go somewhere together. That would be great. It would be simply wonderful. When you figure out your schedule, call me. I'm always here. Although, I'm not sure I'll be able to leave the baby with Misha. He's at work after all. But what if it works out? Thank you. The girls hugged goodbye and went home. I'll be late tonight. Misha came home from the dairy, unloaded the groceries on the table, and started getting ready for work while Lera fed her son. Yeah, what's wrong? He lied at work again. She had already gotten used to counting on her husband's help in the evenings. Well, on the other hand, Misha was given a whole week of vacation instead of the usual 3 days when Oleg was born. So getting angry at him for being asked to stay late at work would be wrong. No, he shook his head. We have a class reunion. I didn't want to go at first, but almost all the guys will be there, and we haven't seen each other since our graduation party. Besides, I have a lot to tell you. For example, I want to tell you that I've become a father, and that I have a wonderful, loving wife. You won't mind, will you? Larry, maybe it might be, and she'd like Misha to stay home. After all, she spends her entire days indoors, and her husband is getting ready to meet his school friends. However, the girl understood perfectly well his desire to boast to his classmates not only about his good job, but also about having a wonderful son. Of course. Go, darling. I think I can handle one evening without you. With Oleg, she was already calculating in her head which chores would have to be postponed until the following evenings, and which, little Oleg, would not be a hindrance. At 10:00 p.m., Misha was still not there. The child had long since fallen asleep, and Larry couldn't sleep. It seemed she was a little worried about her husband, although I wasn't ready to admit it even to myself. The girl decided it wasn't too late and called her friend. But Sonia didn't answer, and 20 minutes later she sent a message on Messenger. I can't talk. If it's not urgent, then let's discuss it tomorrow. Okay. Lera felt incredibly awkward. She immediately remembered that Sonia's in-laws were visiting. Maybe her friend was with her husband right now, and here she was with her call because she was bored, you see. Lera didn't even answer, deciding that her new text would only distract Sonia from her rest. Eventually, Lera started watching some stupid TV series and, before she knew it, fell asleep. She woke up after midnight, looked around in surprise, realized Misha still hadn't arrived, and became seriously worried. "Where are you?" she wrote, deciding it was unlikely the class reunion had lasted that late. The message wasn't delivered, and it just sat there on the screen with a single checkmark. Claire tried to calm down and went to bed. She expected to toss and turn, worrying about her husband, but it seemed her body was just waiting to settle into a horizontal position. She fell asleep almost instantly. Oleg woke up and started whining, as always early, somewhere around 6:00 am. Lera opened her eyes and, to her horror, discovered Misha was gone. Had he never returned? But the girl didn't have time to be truly frightened, because the bedroom door opened and her smiling husband walked in. "Hey, are you awake yet?" "Did you just get here?" Lera asked, exhaling with relief and getting up to go to her son's bed. "Of course not, darling. I returned yesterday. I just decided to sleep in the living room so as not to disturb you. You were snoring so soundly. Well, what time?" "I think I waited for you until about 2 o'clock. Lera, chick. Don't exaggerate. I don't know when you really went to bed, but at 1:30 I was already in the arms of sleep." "Yes, and I thought I went to bed later," Lera said thoughtfully, and then perked up. "Mish, why so late? What, have you been dating all this time or something?" "Of course, darling. At first, a large group of us sat together, almost the whole class, then some started leaving, especially my classmates. How are they doing at home, with their children and husbands? It seemed like we were complete slackers compared to them. However, this didn't bother us, and the guys and I moved to the bar, and there, to be honest, we overdid it a little." My husband smiled sheepishly. "It's good that today is a day off. I'll be able to rest a bit." Lera nodded understandingly. "In that case, you and Oleg wake up, and I'll go to the milk kitchen myself. I'm already up anyway." In gratitude for his wife's concern, Misha helped change his son's diaper and got him up, the baby in her arms. "So, Oleg, should we let Mommy go for a walk?" The baby stirred and began to wrinkle his face in displeasure. Now, don't be upset. She'll only be gone for a short while. Just to the milk kitchen and back. Right, Mom?" "Of course, son." Lera kissed the baby on the cheek. "Stay with Daddy for now. I'll be back soon." Then, she kissed Misha too. It seemed the baby understood everything, because he stopped sulking and looked wide-eyed at his parents. How Lera walked down the street, a little sleep-deprived and, perhaps because of that, a little irritated, He left and returned at 1:30 a.m., and I only went to the milk kitchen and back. The girl picked up the groceries, and on the way back she thought that instead of getting angry at her husband, she should just come to an agreement with Misha and give herself a proper day off. After all, I can pump enough milk for a couple of feedings, which means I'll have about 6 hours free. Oh, how much I could do in that time. Let him know what it's like to sit with a baby all day. Sonia called Lera when she was already walking in the park with her husband and son. Misha was strolling along the alleys with the stroller, and she sat down on a bench in the shade near the playground to talk with a friend. "Hi, sorry, I probably distracted you from important things yesterday." "No. What are you saying?" "It's just that I told you that Nathan's parents arrived. We were walking together, and then I went to meet my classmates. I haven't seen you in a while. I wanted to talk to everyone. You're the one who's sorry I didn't talk. I returned around 1 and didn't text you, so as not to disturb you. I thought you and Oleg might already be asleep. I was wrong. I went to bed after midnight yesterday. Misha also had a similar meeting yesterday. True, I didn't wait for him and fell asleep, and this morning I also ran to the dairy shop. However, I think my husband feels guilty, and that's why he's now out for a walk with the baby, and I sat down to rest." "That's right. I also hope that I'll be able to carve out another piece of free life for myself." The next time the friends called each other was about 10 days later. Lera was busy with Oleshka's latest medical checkup. She simply had no time to go out, and Sonia was the first one to call. Lera knew this and didn't hold it against her friend. Now Lera was telling me that 2 pediatricians had changed at the children's clinic, including one in their area, and how the new doctor had almost forced their son to go through all the tests all over again. "Keep that in mind when you go. Your due date is approaching too," she warned her friend. "I don't know when that will be," Sonia responded somewhat frivolously to the new information. "My dream has come true. Daniel's parents took him and left. Can you imagine? They're giving me a chance to rest. Wait, what about feeding him? How will Danya eat without you? That hasn't been a problem for a long time. My milk has completely dried up, so he'll be formula fed. I gave them cans of formula and instructions. It's okay. Adults can handle it. You're lucky to have your husband's parents," Lera rejoiced for her friend. "And how are you and Nathan going to use this freedom? No, I understand one option, of course. But there are others. Don't you understand, Lera? Nathan, he couldn't trust them with a small child. I'm left completely alone and I'm enjoying this freedom. I've already had a good night's sleep, and now I'm ready for heroic deeds." Yes, there was a slight note in Lera's voice. Disappointment. "And I was thinking of inviting you for a walk in the park. No, my friend. I'll take everything I have from my freedom." "Okay, I'm very happy for you." Lera wasn't being disingenuous about this. She even envied Sonia a little. She would also like a couple of days of such a vacation. Then, have a blast. "Thank you, Larochka. I'll try." "How are we doing?" Misha asked, returning from work quite late that day. This happened a lot lately. Lera told her husband about her conversation with her friend. Can you imagine? The in-laws took little Danya. Nathan and Sonia is walking around the city all alone. You know, I envy her so much. I would also like to break away a little like this, at least for a couple of days. What a pity your parents live far away. Don't worry, darling. When Oleska grows up a bit, we'll go visit them and show them our grandson, Misha tried to reassure her. I have no doubt they'll agree to let us take him off our hands for a while, and then we'll go to the movies or go on an excursion. Yes, of course. I hope that's how it will be, Lera nodded sadly. She thought Misha hadn't understood her at all. She wants to go to the movies or go on an excursion in a different, foreign, and unfamiliar city. She dreams of being completely alone here, where she knows every corner, where she has many friends, so she can stroll through the shopping centers explore old and new places, and at the same time not rush home, knowing that Oleg is being looked after and that everything will be all right. Ultimately, Lera just wanted to miss her husband and son a little and return home with joy, as Sonia would surely do. But what good is freedom in a strange city where she doesn't know anyone, especially with Misha? No, she loves her husband very much, but still they need a break from each other too. Sonia is lucky, Lera thought once again before falling asleep. It rained all the next day. The walk had to be cancelled. Misha helped his wife move the stroller with their son onto the balcony so the child could at least take a walk there, and he spent the entire day practically settling down in front of the TV. First he watched the races, then a football match, then another football match. Lera tried to sit next to him and watch the competitions, but soon realized she wasn't a fan and couldn't stand to watch for long. Football players were running around the field, or who knows who was racing around in helmets. So the girl, deciding that such a cloudy day was a good time to tidy up the house a bit, started cleaning. Towards 11 o'clock in the evening, when the second football match had ended and Oleshka was peacefully asleep in his crib, Misha suddenly started getting ready. "Where are you going?" the wife asked in amazement. She had been glad that a quiet evening had finally arrived and that she could be alone with her husband. "Sorry, Lurchik," a friend wrote, saying he needed my help. He asked me to come urgently. I'll try to hurry. Misha said all this quickly and was already standing in the hallway, putting on his shoes. "What, no one else can help?" Lera pouted resentfully. "I was hoping we'd spend this evening alone." "Well, since he wrote to me, then apparently not," her husband shrugged. "Don't worry, we'll definitely be together. But I just can't abandon a friend in trouble, especially for such a reason." "Well, yes," the girl reluctantly agreed. "Just come quickly, I'll be waiting for you." However, Lera didn't wait for him again and fell asleep. And it would have been difficult to wait for him, since Misha only arrived it was early morning. She woke up when the front door opened and Misha walked into the apartment. "Wow, did something serious happen?" "Everything's fine," he nodded, not answering her question. "It's still very early for bed." Lera spent a couple of hours in a kind of half-sleep, after which she finally woke up. She went into the large room and was surprised to find Misha fast asleep on the sofa, smiling and his arms spread out in his sleep. Just like a child, his wife thought, and all her anger vanished. Lera didn't wake Misha, deciding that once he got enough sleep, he would certainly tell her everything himself. Soon, Oleg began to sulk. He always did that before waking up. Lera picked up the baby in her arms so that he wouldn't cry and wake his dad, and carried him off to feed him. Then she quickly dressed her son and put him in the stroller, taking him out for a walk to the dairy kitchen. "Are you with the baby today?" The familiar nanny who was handing out groceries smiled at her. "Yes, my husband is sleeping. We decided not to wake him," Lera nodded. "That's right. They, men, need rest too, even more than we do. They're the weaker sex in that sense." Having put some food in the cooler bag that was always hanging under the stroller, Lera went for a walk in the park. It was sparsely populated early in the morning. Mostly dog owners were walking their pets before work. A few athletes were running and stretching on the outdoor exercise area. And yes, city workers were collecting trash from the previous evening in large bags. I should get out to the park more often, this early, Lera thought. And then I'll ask Sonia. She probably doesn't know how nice it is here in the mornings. It was rare for a girl to pass a stroller with either a dad or grandparents in it. Lera looked at them and was touched. They let the mothers of the babies sleep, and we let the dad. When they returned home, Misha was already awake and in the shower. "Wow, I almost lost you," he said when he came out. "Where are you going so early in the morning?" "We went to the dairy kitchen and took a walk in the park. It's so nice there in the mornings, you can't imagine. I even thought that we should change the time of our walk to the morning and suggest it to Sonia. And what's up with your friend? Everything's all right. Okay, Lera's husband waved off Lera's answer. You're not going to tell me? I'm sorry, but he doesn't want me to talk about it. Maybe some other time. Understand, it's not my secret. I understand, the girl nodded. Just don't let him interrupt you at night next time. You do have a small child, after all. Tell him so. Definitely, Misha nodded. At some point, Lera realized that something was going on with her husband. But she couldn't even explain to herself what exactly it was. He started showing up at home less often and staying late at work more often. Misha was constantly having unexpected business. He would rush out of the house, leaving his wife alone with their little son and giving her practically no rest. Lera felt tired both physically and emotionally. But Misha didn't refuse all her requests. No, he just always had good reasons, and he couldn't do what she wanted. The girl called and complained to her best friend, Sonia, about it. I don't know what's going on. He's always disappearing somewhere. He hardly spends time with Oleg, and I can't remember the last time we were together. Sonia was silent for a few moments. Then hesitantly she said, Sorry, but maybe he has someone on the side. Oh no, of course not. Lera hotly rejected this idea. He loves Oleg and me very much, but he always finds some kind of excuse. Maybe he's sick and afraid to tell me about it. That's also possible, her friend agreed. Talk to him frankly, he'll probably admit it. You're probably right. We need to talk to him and discuss everything. I'm fine, Misha said, engrossed in the football match on the TV screen in response to Lera's concern. What makes you think that? It's just that you hardly communicate with either me or your son. We haven't gone for walks together for a long time. And when was the last time he showed attention to me? Misha nodded, not taking his eyes off the screen. And now you're not listening to me either, Lera said as a parting shot, just to see his reaction. And she saw him nod again. Then she took the remote and turned off the TV. What are you doing? Misha reared up. The last minutes of the match. Come on, turn it back on quickly. Not until you talk to me, he said negatively. Lera shook her head. And don't yell, you'll wake Oleg. Oh, that's how it is, her husband said angrily, jumping up from the couch and immediately getting dressed, leaving the apartment, slamming the door. She sank heavily into his place and felt tears streaming down her cheeks. She had never seen Misha like this before, but she clearly understood that it had nothing to do with football. The radio didn't pick up the sound of her son tossing and turning in bed. Lera sobbed, wiped her face with her hand, and went into the bedroom to check if Oleg had woken up from the loud knocking. Sonia, with whom Lera wanted to share her worries, tell him about her husband's actions, and ask if she had done something wrong, didn't answer her call or text. The girl realized she would have to deal with the problem alone. Misha appeared the next morning looking guilty. Forgive me, Liris. I didn't mean to. I don't know what's wrong with me. Lera, though angry, couldn't stay mad at him anymore. She smiled. You scared me. Don't do that again. Okay, let me make you some coffee, and you can tell me everything. My husband drank his coffee with pleasure, but he couldn't say anything coherent before quickly running off to work. So quickly, in fact, that he forgot his phone at home, right on the shoe rack. Lera noticed his absent-mindedness around lunchtime, when she returned from a walk with their son and placed the smartphone on the table so he would see it as soon as he returned. Oleg had been surprisingly quiet lately. He slept and ate a lot and was rarely fussy. Lera even had enough time to rest during the day. So today, after putting the baby down for another nap, she sat down on the sofa and turned on the TV. However, there was nothing interesting on it, and Lera's eye was drawn to her husband's phone. She picked it up and saw that it was on silent mode, as they always left their phones at night. Apparently, Misha had forgotten to take it off this morning. What if someone called him? Lera worried and turned on the phone. A message popped up on the lock screen, "Hello darling, today as always." At first, the girl didn't even understand the meaning of this phrase, and when it dawned on her, Lera quietly put her husband's smartphone aside and thought, "Mish, sit with Oleg for just half an hour." "Okay, I need to go to the pharmacy. And then it'll close. And you need to take your medicine before bed. I forgot to buy them during my walk today." My husband, feeling guilty, nodded in agreement. "Yes, of course. But you sit right here with him, okay? Oleshka really doesn't like it when no one is around." "Yes, of course, Liris, don't worry." The girl went out into the hallway, pretended to get dressed, and shouting loudly, I left, demonstratively slamming the door. Then, Lera carefully and silently stood next to the apartment and turned on the radio, which she had thoughtfully brought with her. She didn't have to wait long. Misha, undoubtedly, immediately left the bedroom. His footsteps were heard on the device. Then the phone's tone dialing sounded, and there was a beep. Finally, the phone was picked up. A female voice on her husband's smartphone squealed joyfully. "Misha. My darling. Why did you take so long? How much longer must I wait for you? Wait, my darling." Lera's husband answered her in a voice so tender that even Lera, who was eavesdropping, felt her insides tremble. "My wife left the baby with me, but she'll be back soon. She forgot to pick something up at the drugstore. As soon as she comes, I'll rush to you." "You're not. Can you imagine how much I miss you and want to be with you as soon as possible? It's so heartbreaking. I'm also loved. I really miss my sweet little bear, Kasalopi, and I miss my kitty, with whom it's so sweet to fall asleep." Lera listened to all these confessions and tried not to scream in despair. Now it became clear to her what exactly had been happening to Misha lately. It turns out he had another woman. But how long ago and why did he betray her and Oleg and find himself an affair elsewhere? At first, Lera wanted to burst into the apartment and cause a scene. Then she thought that this would scare her son and decided to act differently. "Are you going somewhere again at night?" she asked, returning as if from the pharmacy and throwing a blister pack of medicine she had prepared in advance on the table. "Well, yeah, Semyonok can't figure out the alarm. The facility isn't being guarded. It's late. He can't spend the night there." "Oh, I see." Lera drawled, feigning trust, though inside she was seething with anger. "Then let him wait a little longer until we put Oleg to bed. You never know. Maybe he'll figure it out himself. He'll manage." "That's unlikely." The husband shook his head, but didn't argue, instead quickly typing something on his phone. "I'll let you know I'll be a little later so you don't have to wait in vain," he explained to Lera. She agreed. Let him know. After Oleshka, having eaten his fill, was snoring comfortably in bed, Misha went to get dressed. Already in the hallway, Lera came closer and rose on tiptoe, hugging him around the neck. She always did this before her husband left, to kiss Misha on the cheek. But instead of the traditional goodbye, Lera whispered in his ear as tenderly and affectionately as possible. "So who is she?" "Who?" The husband shuddered, pulled away, and looked at her in surprise. The girl immediately loosened her embrace and spoke rather sharply. "So, who calls you a clumsy bear? It's time for you to listen to me." "Okay, so that's it. I'm warning you, if you leave now, there will be no way back to me and my son. Understood? Your Semyonok dealt with the alarm long ago, but the kitty, it seems, can't live without you. Yes, Prince, you're in such a hurry that you're shaking all over." The man froze, and after a few moments, he came to his senses and grinned. "So you heard everything? Well, what a clever one. Don't you want to tell me?" "No, I don't want to. You wouldn't understand." "How do you know? You haven't even tried." And how long has your Semyonesh been having problems with the alarm? You can say whatever you want, but I'm still leaving today, Misha declared decisively. You can do whatever you want, but, as I already said, I won't let you back in. His wife answered in the same tone. How long have you had this? Do you want to know? Well then listen, the man hissed angrily. Just don't complain later that it would have been better if you hadn't known anything. My first love came to meet my graduation. At school, we dreamed that we would never be apart. But, alas, life separated us, and that evening we realized that the feelings hadn't gone away. We still love each other, and even more than before. And we don't care that we both have children and families. We want to be together, and nothing will separate us. And by the way, she left her husband and small child just to be with me. Understand? And would you be capable of such a sacrifice for the sake of love for me? If you're still interested in an opinion if you're talking about a husband, then you've completely stopped noticing me since Oleg was born, so there's no point in complaining that I'm not with you. Look in the mirror before you make any claims against me. And by the way, I'd advise you to look in it more often. You've become like a scarecrow. Instead of a normal haircut, pulled back into some kind of short, disheveled ponytail, your hair and face are all wrinkled, and you can't get out of t-shirts and sweatpants. It's embarrassing to even take you for a walk with the stroller, let alone invite you anywhere. You can't even tidy yourself up, let alone anything else. If you loved me, would you look like this? Your whole appearance shows how much you don't care about me, and that you don't see me as a man, but only as a source of money. For the sake of our love, I gave birth to your son, Lera said after a short silence, listening to him. But you didn't appreciate that, apparently. Well, I understand everything. If a woman could abandon her child, then you can certainly do it. My logic is correct. Yes, and when were you planning to tell me about this? I wanted to ask you for a divorce in the very near future. In that case, the girl shrugged, feigning indifference. I give you my consent. You're free to go to your high school sweetheart. I'm sure you'll never find the devotion and warmth there that we had. A betrayer once will betray a second time. You don't know her. Sonia isn't like that, Misha replied heatedly. And, after saying goodbye, he turned abruptly, walked out of the apartment, and slammed the door. At that moment, Lera couldn't even admit to herself how painfully the name of her husband's mistress resonated with her. Not only all their classmates knew that Sonia and Misha were in love, but even their teachers at school. In high school, they even stopped teasing them about being engaged, as there was nothing offensive about it. No one doubted that as soon as they graduated from school, they would get married. Misha was sure of it too. Let's run away somewhere, Sonia whispered when she invited him to the white dance at prom. What are you talking about? It's prom. It happens once in a lifetime, Misha was surprised. Don't you like it? This is our last evening together. She looked sadly at him. Eyes, the girl said. Her dance partner stopped in surprise. How so? Why? Because tomorrow I'll be engaged to someone else, and in a couple of months I'll marry him. Misha decided he'd misheard. Married? How so? You've fallen out of love with me. For whom? For what? So many questions were spinning in his head, but he was too shocked by Sonia's confession to utter a word. You still won't say anything. Who is he? The guy squeezed out. Nathan. His name is Nathan. He's older than us, and he treats me very well. I thought that in order to get married, you have to love your own. Misha couldn't find the words. Sonia understood and shook her head. It's a nice condition, but not a necessary one. What about me? Didn't we want to get married? The girl smiled and looked around the dance hall, where her classmates, the prom organizers, and some teachers and parents were present. That's what they all thought. But remember, Have we ever talked about marriage? No, the young man squeezed out, realizing that Sonia was right. And do you know why? Because my parents would never agreed for me to marry you. You are not one of us. Moreover, they have long promised their friends that I would marry their son. It is not customary for us to create families with representatives of other nationalities, so I am marrying Nathan. But you don't love him, Misha objected indignantly. So what? The girl shrugged. But he will be a good and devoted husband to me. Me too. Maybe, but you can't know that for sure. And what can you know about him? Of course, he has a 1,000-year history of his and my ancestors behind him. It is unlikely that he will want to disgrace them. And then I will see what a good husband and father he is, and I will reciprocate his feelings. And if not, then we will live like this. He loves me, but I don't love him. But we will have a strong family. Sonia, listen to yourself. You speak as if we are in the 19th century, and we have no choice or right to our own decisions. And we don't have them even in 21, the girl smiled sadly. You'll be unhappy with him, won't you? Who told you that? Nathan is a very good and caring person. Besides, he's older and has seen and knows more. His family is well off, and they will help us in any situation. And, by the way, Nathan knows that I don't love him, but only have sympathy and friendly feelings. But this does not prevent us from remaining on good terms. Misha realized that his girlfriend had already made up her mind and was simply putting him before the fact with this conversation. Then, why are you telling me this only now? He asked, the question that had been tormenting him. Am I right in understanding that you found out about your upcoming marriage not yesterday? I was afraid that you would leave me right away, she answered sincerely. And I so wanted to take every last drop from our great love. So, how about running away? The young man shook his head. No, you're someone else's fiancé now, not my girlfriend. I'll stay here. For some reason, that's what I thought. Sonia pulled away from him and, turning sharply, walked to the chairs where her classmates were sitting. Misha was shocked and spent the rest of the evening sitting, thoughtfully watching Sonia chat happily with her school friends, discussing the teachers they were leaving and planning where and what they would study to be. The girl didn't mention a word about breaking up with Misha and planning to marry someone else, as if it was so insignificant as to be unworthy of attention. And to the occasional question, she answered evasively, "Life will tell." Sonia was right. Misha never saw her again. He moved to a new neighborhood, but for a while he kept her number in his contacts. Sometimes, during particularly sad or difficult moments, he even tried to call or text, but they invariably went unanswered. Then the turmoil of life overwhelmed the young man. He hid the pain of his unhappy high school crush in the deepest corner of his heart and began to build his new life. When he met Lera, Misha initially decided to simply court the pretty young woman who acted so sincerely. She often shared her experiences, was spontaneous with his friends, and never even hinted at moving in together. Misha took a closer look and realized that Lera wouldn't betray him, wouldn't say, unlike Sonia, that they were of different blood, and would discuss all problems right away, rather than wait until the last minute. When he was convinced he was right, he proposed. It took her completely by surprise. She asked for time to think, and on their next date she asked, "You asked me a question last time. I wanted to know if you still needed an answer, or if it was no longer relevant." Of course, Misha smiled, although his heart sank with foreboding. Then, "I agree," Lera said casually, looking at him from under her brows. Really, he doubted, not expecting such a lack of emotion. In films and videos he had seen girls cry or laugh with happiness, sometimes do strange things. But it always happens very emotionally. Lera, however, seemed to behave completely calmly. From her tone, One could think that they were casually talking about which cafe to stop at for dinner tonight. Yes, the girl nodded firmly. Or did you expect a different answer? The way you said it bothers me, he admitted. It's like you decided how many apples to take. I need a kilogram. I agree. How would you like to hear my agreement? I don't know, the young man shrugged. He shrugged. When I proposed, I saw it differently. Then let's try again. Lera smiled with the corners of her lips, then suddenly threw her arms around his neck and shouted, "Yes, of course, I agree." That's much better, Misha laughed, realizing that Lera had staged this performance especially for him. 2 years after the wedding, Misha could already say with confidence that he had been right. Lera was a truly genuine, reliable, and faithful wife. She surrounded him with care. She worried when he was sick, shared her problems with him, and they always tried to do everything together, be it a vacation, renovating the apartment, or visiting guests. Lera easily found common ground with Misha's friends and shared delicious dessert recipes and stories about her cosmetics purchases with their wives. Misha was sure that Lera would never say anything unnecessary to strangers, but she would always praise him and tell him what a great guy he was. One day, the young man remembered his first love and thought that now, after a couple of years of married life, he perhaps understood Sonia and why she chose to marry someone else, someone she found more reliable and mature. Now he was like that himself, and that's probably why he was even able to forgive her. He was perfectly aware that he'd married more out of convenience than love, but he'd already begun to feel not only warmth and friendly affection for Lera, but even something resembling love. Especially when Lera gave birth to their son Oleg, Misha and his former friend Lyoshka, with whom he'd called a couple of times a year for birthdays, had forwarded an invitation to a class reunion. Look, the guys decided to get together. I said I'd send it to you. All our guys will be there. Think about it before you refuse. We'll sit, chat, discuss how everyone's life is going. Misha replied that he'd be happy to, but he'd just had a son, and he was up to his ears, in work and at home. So, this is a great excuse to unwind from his worries, and at the same time, to brag. Or, do you have a wife, Megera? Misha was offended on Lera's behalf and replied that no, his wife understood everything perfectly. He would discuss it at home and then give a final answer. But he didn't tell Lera about his doubts. The young man thought that one evening wouldn't change anything. After all, he was working late, and Lera always understood that. And secondly, if he didn't show up, the boys would think he was a henpecked wimp, that his wife was the one calling the shots, and he was fawning over her. Misha definitely couldn't afford that. So, after waiting a while, he wrote to Lyoshka that he and his wife had agreed on everything, and that he would definitely come. Ari decided to tell him right before the event, so there wouldn't be time to think. True, he was worried that Lera might start a scene. But he pushed those thoughts aside. In their entire marriage, he couldn't recall a single instance where his wife had been seriously offended or objected to him. There had been minor misunderstandings, of course, but nothing lasting. That evening, when Lera calmly let him go to the guys, he drove towards them and thought about what a wonderful wife he had and how right he was to propose. The fun was in full swing when Sonia approached the group. Misha immediately forgot what he was talking about. I had just finished talking to Lyoshka, and I stared at my first love with my mouth open. Sonia had matured and become even more beautiful. Now her petite figure had a feminine air, and her large black eyes glittered with a sparkle of either cunning or worldly wisdom, or most likely both. Hi, guys. She smiled directly at Misha. Oh, Sonia, wow. And we thought you weren't coming. Her former classmates began to talk, interrupting each other. You have a small child. I was released from caring for my son at the last minute, and I got away, she replied, without taking her eyes off Misha or turning her head towards her interlocutors. I'm so glad to see you all here. The last sentence was addressed directly to him. You did the right thing by coming. This is wonderful. You need a break from your family too, sit down and tell me. Misha may have heard what was being said around him, but he didn't notice it at all, as he was looking only at his school sweetheart. She was also looking at him, practically without looking away. It was getting late. The guys were starting to leave. Misha glanced at his watch and was horrified by the fact that how quickly time flew, and he stood up after the others. I have to go too. I have a small child, my wife is probably tired. And I'll go. Sonia stood up eagerly after him. They went out into the street together, and of course, they didn't go to any families, but found the nearest hotel and rented a room there. Are you happy? Asked Misha when it was time for them to say goodbye to each other. Now yes, absolutely, Sonia nodded. She seemed to him even more beautiful than at the beginning of the evening. No, that's not what I mean, Misha shook his head. Are you happy in your family life? Well, I don't know, she shrugged and looked down. To be honest, everything turned out a little differently than I imagined. What, is my husband cheating on me? No, what are you saying? Of course not. The girl was simply trying to find the words, then exhaled sharply, as if she had made up her mind, and spoke haltingly, as if afraid of being interrupted. You know, I suddenly realized that I'm not living my life. I don't need any of this. Not a husband, not a family, not even, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Not even Daniel, my son. I don't feel any affection for him, as they say, maternal instinct. Maybe there must be something wrong with me. I can't explain much, but I understand that I would like to live completely differently. And are you happy? Misha sighed, thinking so. Until this evening, and when I saw you, I realized it was all a lie. Sonia nodded sadly. But now, there's nothing to be done. How is that possible? He was indignant. You and I have already seen that we are still very happy together, and our love hasn't gone anywhere. It's alive. We can bring everything back. We need to tell our families everything. I don't want to be apart from you anymore. I can't even imagine losing you again. Me neither, Sonia smiled. Those words and smiles stayed before Misha's eyes for a long time. Every time he returned from a date with Sonia, Misha was sure that the very moment had come when he needed to talk to Lera, tell her everything, and ask for a divorce. But as soon as he crossed the threshold of his apartment, his determination immediately disappeared somewhere, and he put off the conversation for later. I left the house, said Sonia. Or rather, the house left me. What do you mean? Misha turned to her in surprise. I talked to Nathan, told him that it was I couldn't love him, that we don't have a family, but are just neighbors, living together only because some of our ancestors decided so. I said that I dreamed of a different life. And about me too, Misha clarified, already knowing what the answer would be. Of course, Sonia nodded. So what? Nothing special. He called his parents. They came, took Daniel and left with Nathan, leaving me alone. They said that if I didn't want to be one family with them, that was my decision, but they wouldn't give me my son. They took my son. The young man was horrified, imagining what would have happened if he had said that to Lera. He thought about how Sonia's behavior that evening had made it completely impossible to tell that her child had been taken away. How do you feel? He looked at the girl sympathetically. Nothing, she calmly shrugged, and even seemed to smile slightly. Or maybe Misha just imagined it. Absolutely nothing, even a kind of relief, as if a great burden had been lifted from my shoulders. But now, I'm free. After the date, Misha drove home and thought about how calmly Sonia had told him about her husband and son's departure. If she could, if he were to give up everything for him, Then Misha had to take his step too. It was his turn to talk to his wife. But, returning to his family, he suddenly thought, why? I can continue to live like this. Go to Sonia's home, and not to a hotel. Now she can see me whenever she wants, and then go back to Lera. My Oleg is growing up here, and there will be no need to waste anyone's nerves. But it was then that his wife found out that he had a mistress. Misha had no choice but to tell her the truth, and in order to somehow justify his actions, accuse Lera of being to blame for his infidelity. Misha went to work in a depressed state. Sonia had been throwing a scandal at him since the morning. Lately, such hysterics had been happening more and more often. Misha even thought that perhaps Sonia should see a doctor. Maybe the problem lay not in her character, but in her health, but he was afraid to voice his thought, so as not to run into another showdown. This time, the girl was unhappy that he was again late at work the day before. You were drinking again with your Semyonich? How much? Can I? I understand your ex-wife perfectly now. Misha looked at Sonia in bewilderment. He'd returned yesterday sober as a judge, and he and Semyonich had been working until late at night sorting out yet another delivery they hadn't made on time. And what do you understand? You'll hang out anywhere just to avoid coming back to me? The rented apartment they'd found almost as soon as they started living together was gradually turning from a love nest into a drama theater stage. Misha snapped out of his reverie, honking the car horn and slamming it on the right front door. Damn, the last thing I need is an accident, he cursed, and got out of the car to see what was going on. What are you, a man? The driver of a rather battered foreign car rushed at him. Have you ever tried looking at a traffic light? Or are you colorblind? Only then did Misha realize that he had completely automatically driven through a red light and hadn't even noticed it. Reliving the events of that morning. Yes, your license is expired. The traffic police officer who arrived on the scene an hour and a half later looked at Misha. What are you doing? Inattentive? Your license wasn't renewed. Didn't you see the red light? Sorry, Misha shrugged, lost in thought. Apparently you were deep in thought. The lieutenant chuckled. I wrote up a ticket and called a tow truck to take Misha's car to the impound lot. I can't leave it on the roadway. I don't have the right to let you drive it either. I certainly won't get in myself, he explained the call. There's no other way. When you find someone to drive your car, come to the impound lot with the driver. Misha remembered that he had planned to take Sonia to the store over the weekend and thought that another showdown or a huge scandal awaited him that evening. However, returning home after work, somewhat tired after the ordeal with the car, he froze in surprise, realizing that no one was in the apartment. Looking closely, Misha discovered that along with Sonia, her things were gone too. There was a note on the table. I made a huge mistake when I chose you. You couldn't give me what I so dreamed of. I hope we never see each other again. Nathan forgave me, and I really miss my son. That very note about his son stirred Misha's memory of Oleshka, whom he'd tried so hard to forget all the time he'd lived with Sonia. The thought of the child became an obsession. He thought up all sorts of ways to see Oleshka. Shouldn't he go to Lera's? But she'd said she wouldn't let him back, so he had to make her think their meeting was a coincidence. And so one weekend, unable to bear the loneliness, Misha wandered aimlessly around the city. The Goswami led him to the very park, where he and Lera had once walked with their sleeping son in the stroller. What if we meet here? A thought flashed through Misha's mind. At first, he seemed reluctant, as if trying to talk himself out of it, but then he walked faster and faster toward the playground. Oleshka, Oleshka, don't go up the slide first, let the girl go. Lera walked up to her 2-year-old son, gently held him, and then allowed him to climb onto the small platform at the top of the slide. Oleg, sitting on his bottom, laughed and slid down, Strong, sturdy male arms caught him there and tossed him high into the air. Then again, and again. The little boy laughed with delight and wrapped his arms around the man's neck. Well, Lera approached them, smiling. Have you had enough fun? Let's go home. Let's go, Oleg nodded. The man tried to put him down. No, I want to be on Daddy's neck. The little boy stamped his feet. Okay, Lera nodded. Let Daddy carry you. The man easily sat the child on the back of his neck. The three of them headed toward the park exit. Misha, who had been watching this scene from a bench located behind the fence of the playground, stood up and, lowering his head, walked away.